Good afternoon and welcome to our Friday edition of the Texas Public Employees Association Lunch and Learn series. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors, and thank you for joining us today on the TPEA Lunch and Learn series. We're going to talk about some concepts surrounding protecting your nest egg today. A little bit shorter of a webinar presentation than we've had in the past, but a couple of housekeeping details just for those of you who have not joined us before, or for those of you while you're joining in. All participants are in a listen only mode. And what that means is if you have questions or you want to chat and make a comment, feel free to drop it in the chat box, the Q&A, and periodically throughout our conversation today, we'll probably stop, answer a few questions, and then maybe at the end, we'll stop the recording and just go live and let you hold up your hand on the reaction bar, and we can answer some questions if you don't feel comfortable chatting in there as well. We do record every one of these webinars, and we place them out on the TPEA website. I'm going to show you today where you can find those webinars and the recordings, and that way you can follow up with them and look at them, share them with family members, coworkers, things like that. You'll also notice this QR code down here on the bottom. Just like our QR codes in restaurants today, you will notice that you can take your smartphone, you can hover over your QR code with the camera feature on your smartphone, open it up, and a little form will pop up, and you can have information that you want more information about what we share at TPEA as well as AMBA. So as Ray Amell, our legislative liaison, gets seated down here, we'll get started here and get rolling. Good morning, Ray. How are you, sir?
Hey, good, John. Can you hear me okay?
You sound just great. So let me tell folks a little bit about what TPEA does. Then I want you to kind of tell us, you're on the road a lot now. We're everywhere. So TPEA is designed, has been organized over 75 years ago, before ERS even came into existence. They were there to support state employees, to protect your pension plan, work towards salary funding at all levels to increase those salaries, benefit protection, funding for benefits, things like that as well, and then give you discounts and benefits on top of things that you can't get except for being a member of TPEA. So I want to bring on Ray Amell right now, who is your legislative liaison. And Ray, kind of tell us where TPEA is, where you've been all across Texas, and where you're going in the next several weeks.
Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. First and foremost, thank all of you who are still employed with the state and who are serving the state through floods and fires and freezes and COVID. I mean, you are really doing great work, and we try to reach out and appreciate and show how much you are appreciated. And just wanted to put a little shout out to all of you, and all of you retirees who did the same during your careers, dedicated service to the state. We do have some events that are coming up, John. One is going to be out in Lufkin. We're going to have a state employee and retiree appreciation event at Pablo's restaurant in Lufkin on March 30th, the afternoon and evening of March 31st. And that we, of course, is going to be mostly people in Nacogdoches, Lufkin, that sort of area. That'll be, I think, might want to come. We will have hors d'oeuvres, and we will have, I think, some tacos, and we will have a couple of free drinks for you. So hope we can make it. Hope we see you there. Additionally, we will be at both April 6th and 7th in Huntsville, and we will be showing appreciation for state employees, primarily TDCJ employees, both days, and similar type events that we are having in Lufkin. We will be in San Antonio for a couple of events on May 5th. Grady's on Bandera Road at noon, and then later that day, we're going to be 4 o'clock, 4:30, something like that. We'll be putting forth additional details. We'll have a place again where we could, well, that'll be Cinco de Mayo, by the way. So we will have some tacos. We will have some drinks to celebrate. And again, all of which is meant to honor you, state employees and retirees, who have done so much, sometimes unrecognized, exceptional service for the state of Texas. And just got back from, I was in with Gina Stannard. We were up in Gatesville, and we met with several folks up there. And so we've been kind of additionally been out in Lubbock, and we've been in San Angelo, So if you have an event where you know your agency is going to sponsor an event like a safety fair or something of that sort, let us know and we will send folks to it. And we will set up a table and we will maybe perhaps even get to speak to the gathered masses, but we at least would like to be there to see you and show our appreciation, as well as maybe, and here's the big theme here, maybe you get some folks to join TPEA, because there is strength in numbers as we go forward towards the legislative session. It'll be more and more important that we build up our membership numbers so that we can go to legislators and say, look, you know, you have a goodly number of state employees and retirees in your district, and we don't ask for much, but we do at this time think that it is time for a pay raise. It is time, with inflation doing the corrosive effects, having corrosive effects on your budgets, for a pay raise. And it is time for an annuity increase for retirees, now that you, the legislature, have done a great job of building ERS fund back up, and you're committing $1 billion every biennium for the next 15 biennia. So that, we think, will put ERS in shape in just a couple of years to be in position to give an annuity increase, a 13 check and or annuity increase to retirees. So those are the two big themes that we're going to be talking to legislators about. And it helps very much to know that we can point to members, TPEA members in those districts. So thank you, John, for letting me go on a little bit there.
You bet. No, thank you, Ray. We enjoy being out there. AMBA is out there with you in most of the locations as well. So stop by and see us as well. Pick up some free gifts from us. Get into our drawing and learn about your benefits that you have through TPEA. I would encourage you to bring some of your coworkers. We're seeing good numbers of people who are not members of TPEA coming to join us at these events. So it's a great way to introduce them to TPEA, have a little food and fellowship as well. Ray, we've had Juan ask us if we show up in South Texas. So we need to make a plan to get down to the Valley sometime soon.
We sure do. Yes, we do, John. And we were in Corpus, Ann and I. And I think because of some COVID concerns and maybe the timing, we were able to go and see Senator Hinojosa in Corpus Christi and give him an award for his exceptional efforts on behalf of the ERS retirement. But we weren't able to attract very many state employees to come to the event. So I guess we need to get the word out a little bit better, and maybe COVID concerns have really abated now. So we hope. And additionally, there is ERS will be having some retiree events in Austin only coming up on April 26th and 27th. And we're told we can have a real small, somewhat small table there at their event, but we're finding out more details about that. But if you're a retiree anywhere around Austin, think about, you know, showing up at ERS between 11 and 2 on either the 26th or 27th of April.
Great. Thank you, Ray. And again, if you are in an agency and you want us to come out there, TPEA to come out, you can, I'll give you my contact information at the end of our conversation today. You can reach out to the TPEA office, go to tpea.org and take a look at their contact phone numbers, and we'll get that information out to you, because we would love to come out to your office, share with you all about TPEA, bring some goodies, have a good time as well. So Juan, thank you for that question. We'll get down to far South Texas as soon as we can down there, especially with COVID abating, and hopefully we're through tornado season. Well, everyone, Ray, you mentioned, I think every major pestilence or whatever, but we had tornadoes this past week. So,
yeah, I should have. Yeah, tornadoes happened near Charlotte's house. So
exactly. So, like I said, it's been a fun week, but we do thank you again for your service, and we appreciate that. And I cannot springboard off of Ray's conversation enough to talk about membership. Over 650 of your fellow employees, retirees, and friends joined TPEA last year. Let's continue to do that, especially as we now go into runoff season. We go into the general election in the fall. It's a great opportunity to share with those people who have a vote on our pay, our pension, and our benefits, the strength and numbers that we have here. As an active state employee, it's only $7.50 a month. As a retiree or as an associate member, someone who maybe not be associated with the state employment as a retiree or an active employee, but still want to support state employees, be it your spouse, something like that, and take advantage of the benefits that you get through TPEA. There are ways that you can join at all different levels on the website, tpea.org, and be glad to help you get taken care of that way as well. We talked earlier because we talked about how we record every one of these webinars, and we make these available to members on the TPEA website. When you go on the website and you log in as a member, you will see that there's a members only section. It's down here. I've taken some screenshots of the website, and that you can go to exclusive content for members, services and discounts, and you will see the videos that we have posted out here. Some of the pre-retirement webinars we've done, some of the great stuff that Jennifer Preston's brought us from the Texas Saver Plan to talk about that. And we talk about all the different components that are out there, your different benefits as well. That's where you'll find these in the members only section. You will also find great benefits and discounts for members. And I want to highlight a couple of them that are TPEA benefits that are out there for you. One is a significant discount program through the parking spot. We're starting to travel again. So you can save up to 25% in the state of Texas, 10% across the country by using your TPEA membership. And if you're a member, it'll show you the code that you're supposed to give when you check out there or make your reservation for the parking spot. The other is Texas Legal. And this is a unique program that's available and has some special customized benefits for TPEA members. It's a legal plan that gives you, for a subscription fee, discounted estate planning, divorces, bankruptcy, wills, important things like that, criminal defense if you need it, at a greatly reduced price. Sometimes it's thrown in as part of the package, but it also gives you an administrative rider feature on this plan that pays some of your legal fees related to administrative hearings for state employees. Think demotions, pay decreases, terminations, things like that. And so these are two discounts that are available to you. They're also out there on the benefits section of TPEA, and you'll have to go through your membership route. If you have questions or have difficulties in getting in to your membership only section, then all you've got to do is contact Gina Stannard. Her phone number is on the website, tpea.org, and she can walk you through and help you become either a member or help you get your membership number so that you can log in and take advantage of the discounts that you have out there. So we're going to talk today for the next 30 minutes or so about protecting your nest egg. If you're like me, I have stopped looking at my 401k plan this year because I don't like to see all the red that's in there. And so you start to think, well, how do I protect my nest egg? And we're going to go through some things today where we're going to define what really is your nest egg. As state employees, you really have three different main components of preparing for retirement. And what is and what isn't a nest egg is part of how we're going to define that today. We're going to take most of our conversation after that based on a USA Today article that I found a few years back that talked about the 5 biggest threats to that nest egg and how you can prepare for that, how you can protect that and have peace of mind, and what the TPEA is doing to give you some endorsed options that are out there. But to help Ray and I have this conversation today, I want to launch a poll real quickly and kind of get a feel for who's on our call today. So if you'll just take a few seconds to answer whether you're a retiree or whether you're an active state employee, that will help us with our conversation, and we greatly appreciate you doing that. And then the other thing, Ray, we forgot to talk about, we're right in the middle of pollen season too. So allergy season is going nuts as well after this storm. So
yes, yes, indeed.
Lots of fun.
Doubled up on the allergy medicine.
There you go. There you go. So, all right. Okay, so we've got a pretty good group out here. Let me end the poll here. I'm going to share the results. We're about 50-50 split. So I appreciate you jumping on here today. We've got a little bit more retirees than active state employees, but we're going to try to gear our conversation towards the mix, a pretty good mix, and say, you know, if you're doing this now in an active employee, here are ways you can protect yourself and your nest egg for the future. And in your retirement years, some things you may need to think about a little differently. So if you've got questions at the moment, if you could drop those into chat, that will help Ray and I move along through here. We can answer those. And at the end, if you've got questions at the end, what we'll do is we'll just stop the recording. You can hold up your hand on the reaction bar, and that will help us move forward and answer your question. We can unmute you and answer the question that way. So if you joined us a couple of weeks ago when Jennifer Preston from Texas Saver Plan talked about the retirement stool, the stable retirement ability is based on three legs. And you take a three-legged stool and you remove one of those legs, and it's not as stable. As state employees, you enjoy two very important, strong legs to your retirement. That's ERS, which is very strong. And as Ray touched on, some of the efforts that TPEA have done over the past legislative session have really strengthened that leg of the stool, the ERS. The state has increased their funding, increased how they're going to do their funding towards ERS, which puts you in a good position as we're hoping in the next couple of legislative sessions for some type of cost of living increase or a 13th check, something like that. So you've got ERS as one leg. Then you have Social Security, which you're paying into right now as well. That's your other leg of your retirement income. And your third leg is what I call other savings. It's a big basket of a lot of different things. For most of you, that's probably your biggest number will come from your Texas Saver plan, your 401k or 457 plan, so that you can have retirement that way. There's a lot of other components of that. So when we go through, when we talk about your nest egg, let's make sure we understand what is and what isn't part of your nest egg. So your pension plan is not part of your nest egg. So those of you who are either retired and are drawing your pension right now, that's really not part of your nest egg, because that's a plan that you cannot outlive. Now, depending upon how you set up your pension plan, it could impact your surviving spouse or your beneficiary. But in terms of you personally, your active pension is not part of your nest egg because it's something that's always going to be there and continue to pay you out. Your Social Security and your spouse's Social Security are not part of your nest egg as well, because that's something that's there as long as you're living. And when your spouse passes away, there could be some spousal benefits back that way as well. What I call mattress money, or what my grandparents call mattress money or Folgers can money, that money that you're keeping away, you're setting aside for emergency situations. For those of you who are big Dave Ramsey fans, he talks about having 3 to 6 months of your income in an emergency fund. So your nest egg is not your mattress money or your emergency fund either, and neither are structured settlements. These are things such as insurance settlements from an accident, lawsuit claims, things like that. Those are things that people may confuse as nest egg, but those are things that are separate from your nest egg. I'm talking about, when we're talking about nest egg today, your 403B or 401k or 457 plans, depending upon whether you're an educator or a state employee that's not an educator, whether you've got something in the Texas Saver plan, any IRAs, any cash balance pension plans. I'm going to talk about that just briefly and give you an example of what one of those looks like. CDs, savings accounts, money market accounts, things like that, are inheritance. Just that other money that you're saving to balance out that third leg on your retirement stool. That's the nest egg, and that's what we're going to talk about today in terms of how do you protect that? Because your Social Security is pretty protected, your ERS pension is pretty protected. We're talking about how do you make a stable retirement by keeping that third leg protected with all those things that make up a nest egg. And this is where we pull this conversation from. This is an article now that's going on almost 6 years from USA Today that gave 5 potential threats to your retirement. And those 5 threats, and we're going to kind of walk you through some stats as well as walk you through some potential solutions. Number one, that can really scramble your nest egg. And this really is for those of you who have parents that are still living, and for those of you who are active employees and thinking about, well, I'm still working, I've got elderly parents, or for those of you who are the elderly parents in your retirement years, and you've got your sons and daughters and grandkids that are still working. Taking care of an elderly parent can really scramble that nest egg. Death of a spouse without life insurance, Boomerang Children, we're going to touch on that. We're going to talk about a medical crisis and how that could scramble your nest egg. And then the one thing that, like I said, I checked the stock market, I stopped looking at my 401k. What does overexposure to the stock market look like as we age? And we'll kind of put that in context with what's going on today with stock market gyration, something going on overseas, as well as a little bit about how we handle that, what you may want to consider when it comes to your stock market or your nest egg in that regards. Now, be real clear to point out what Ray and I discussed today is not designed to be individual financial advice on your behalf. We always encourage you to talk with a financial expert. You've got the ability to talk to your Texas Saver folks if you're talking about your Texas Saver plan. At AMBA, we have some people that can help you out with some of those things as well. But so individually today, not designed to be something specific to your situation. So the number one threat that this article talked about was taking care of elderly parents. And that's simply because the stat that jumped off the page to me was that 73% of all long-term care is provided in-home by an informal caregiver who receives no compensation. So think about this, whether you're employed and you're thinking about your parents, meaning that 73% of us would have to take off time from our job to take care of our parents, or if you're already retired and one of your children has to take off. What that does is two things. One, we probably don't have enough leave saved up. We don't have enough time accrued to take off the time that an elderly parent may need. So that's unpaid time, may affect our earning potential. But some people that we know that we deal with, they have to cut their career short. And in your world where you've got a pension, that could greatly impact your retirement years as well. And you see the stats there, a female who takes off time to take care of a loved one can look at over $300,000 loss of income, earning potential in their lifetime. And the same thing for a male, close to 300,000. So it's a pretty big shock to the system. I work with a couple of individuals over in Austin who were educators, who were teachers, part of the TRS plan. They had to quit their jobs early to take care of an elderly grandparent, and that stunted their pension. And so it can have a great impact when you're having to take time off to take care of someone that we love. But there are some possible solutions out there. There's long-term care plans. There are home health care plans that allow for someone to come into a home and stay with your parent or grandparent during the day while you're at work, and then you come home at night. So that's a neat plan that I'm exploring with my brother in regards to my mom, because it will allow someone to stay at home with her. It doesn't have to be a skilled nurse, but somebody that if she in her later years needs somebody just to cook and clean and possibly, make sure she's not a fall risk or something like that. Certain plans have the ability to have non-skilled care providers and have compensation for that. And then there's recovery care plans that say your mother slips and falls or breaks a hip, something like that, that would provide for a shorter period of time that someone could come in and be with them so that you wouldn't have to take off time as well. So there are some possible solutions out there for the number one thing that can stunt or scramble a nest egg, and that's having to take care of elderly parents when you don't have the ability to do that yourself. The second one that we see that was mentioned in that article is a spouse dying without life insurance. Now, you have some life insurance available to you up to a certain amount of your income, of your salary available to you from the state. When you're retired, you take some of that with you as well, depending upon what you had before you retired. But once you reach a certain age at retirement, that number or the value of your life insurance drops. The face amount drops significantly every few years, but the rate still goes up. And so sometimes we find state retirees who drop their state life insurance plans and they don't have life insurance. But the article talks about how you would feel a pinch if you had lost a spouse and didn't have life insurance, because that life insurance can keep you from having to dip into that retirement savings, to keep you from having to maybe go into your 401k or your 457 plan through Texas Saver, pulling out money, taking the penalty on it and the taxes to cover some of those expenses, some of those things that maybe you were counting on for a second spouse situation there. Okay, so that's one another situation that's out there. We've got a question. We'll come to that in just a moment. There are some solutions that are out there. There are some plans that are final expense whole life, which gives you just a set dollar amount that you would have if a spouse passed away or you passed away. Some of these plans don't require any medical or have very reduced medical requirements. So if you've got some medical issues, you may have the ability to get some life insurance to go on top of what the state provides for you or what you may buy outside the state as well. So there's some opportunities that way that you can purchase life insurance. The third is a medical crisis. Medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcies in the United States today. Now, you as state employees and state retirees have a very good medical plan. But what we look on the surface, because the way the state pays for your plans, we think because it's paid for as employees or retirees, that it covers everything. It's got a very broad coverage spectrum. However, once you get a little bit deeper in co-pays and co-insurance, and the more rural you are in the state, there may be some situations to where you're not part of a particular network that's available in your area, and you could have balanced billing issues. And then what you find, and I'm going to have Ray kind of address this in a moment from his own personal testimony, is that there are costs outside of what is normally covered by a plan that are not covered in the area of cancer, heart attack, and stroke. So Ray, why don't you share with us your testimony about your cancer situation and kind of how you experienced it from a financial standpoint?
Thank you, John. Yeah, cancer, scary thing, right? And having a 50-50 chance of living, it was quite an ordeal. But I will say that the biggest surprise to me and the most troubling thing about it ended up being the surprise medical bills. I did not realize that every single scan I was sent to do required a substantial copayment outside of the limits of the co-insurance. This sort of adds up very quickly. In addition, there's some travel expense that's not covered by any insurance. If you're going to a specialist or MD Anderson or someplace like that to get that very specialized care for your or treatment for your cancer. And there, of course, co-insurance. Now, the plan that you have with the state, if you stay in network, does cover 80% of your expenses, but you're still required to come up with 20%. And there is a maximum out of pocket on that part, but you've ended up spending, maybe $1,600 just for co-insurance. Add to that deductibles for prescription drug on the prescription drug plan. Add to that the co-payments I talked about, which can run into very amazingly in some ways to a couple of $3,000, $5,000 for all the various procedures, doctor visits. Just specialist co-pays are higher. The co-pay for scans in emergency rooms are higher, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the hit to your pocketbook from a medical situation can be very substantial.
And then you had transportation issues, and then you were also at the time getting ready to consult. Is that correct? And that kind
right. It cut way back on my ability to be. My consulting business suffered very substantially, which meant my income was reduced rather dramatically too. And that's a sort of a hidden cost, opportunity cost, whatever you want to call it. But so yeah, if you're not prepared in some way for that kind of medical crisis, then you really can be approaching a very serious situation financially.
Great. Thank you, Ray. Thank you for sharing that. And this happened to you after you retired or right about the time you retired? When did this happen to you from when your state employment, Ray?
Yeah, it happened to me. I wasn't Medicare. I wasn't on Medicare at that time, but I was retired. So I had retiree health insurance. And I was retired in order to go into consulting business.
Right.
And, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So like I said, Ray, in his own words right there, told you how the impact of even having good state insurance, which you have a very good plan, there are some still expenses related to that. I get a chance to live north of Houston. I get a chance when I fly in and out of Houston all the time. I meet people who are coming here to MD Anderson and the great cancer centers that we have down here in Houston. And those transportation costs are not covered by any medical plan. And so those are things that you've got to think about. Fortunately, the TPEA and AMBA have stepped up. There are some cancer, heart attack, and stroke plans that give you lump sum money that help you pay for that co-insurance, that those deductibles, the cost for each scan that you have to have, things like that. that allow you to have peace of mind and use the money however you want to. It doesn't coordinate with any state plan, so you can use the money whichever way you want to in there. Then there's some recovery care plans, accident plans, and then we've talked about in the past, and I encourage you to go out and look at some of the webinars we've done regarding emergency transportation issues in the state, because about 80% of the ground ambulance providers in the state of Texas are not part of any network. And while there's coverage from the state plan, it doesn't mean that the ambulance provider can't bill you additionally on top of that. So there are some things that can help prevent you having to have expenses related to a medical crisis out there. The fourth thing is Boomerang Children. And now more than ever in the history of our country, and COVID exacerbated this, more households have adult children who have moved back in with them than ever before in the history of our country. And if you're preparing for retirement or you're already in retirement, having somebody else live in your house can greatly impact your ability to retire. And you see that stat down there that says 52% of boomer households who have children that don't live with them are fully retired, but only 21% of those households who have had an adult child live back with them are fully retired. So while I don't have an answer for you or don't have a solution other than maybe lock the door or maybe make them promise to be your caregiver forever, just be aware, as much as we love our children, it can greatly stunt your retirement and scramble your nest egg. The number of individuals that I see on a monthly basis that are paying student loans for their children, that are still there, that they are already in retirement and still paying for grandchildren, student loans, things like that, can shock you. So just understand that could be an issue out there. It's a touchy subject. My wife and I always talk about, we're glad our children are out of the house, but they're always welcome back for a short period of time. But we know that situations change, especially with COVID, job losses, things like that, difficulties. But just know that that can be a great impact on your retirement years and your nest egg if you weren't planning on something like that. And then the fifth and final thing that can really scramble that nest egg is overexposure to the stock market as we age. Now, there is a monetary theory or a retirement savings theory out there that says take 100 and subtract your age from that. And whatever you have left over is how much you should have exposed to the stock market. And that sounds great, but oftentimes we don't manage our money. We've got an outside third party that does it. You've got it in Texas Saver Plan, things like that. But the timing of that, you can't afford to take a hit when it's time to start drawing off of your retirement income, because there are sometimes the thing that doesn't stop is time, and you may not have time to make it back up. If you'll go back in your mind about 14, 15 years ago, 2008, 2009, the housing crash, the crunch that hit, stock market lost about 48% just in a short period of time. If you were retired at that point and you said, well, now I've got half of what I retired with, how am I going to make that up? If I'm drawing income and I need that income immediately, that can scare you. And you don't know what's going to happen. Now, if you had left it in there and it had grown back up now over 14, 15 years, you're probably in a much better position. But sometimes you don't have that ability. You need to start drawing off of that. So your timing is so important in there. But having a plan to protect that, no matter what age you are, because savings interests are very low right now. We'll kind of touch on that in just a moment.
John, may I throw in one thing here too?
Absolutely.
Well, IRS requires, it's called a required minimum distribution if you have an IRA. So you will have to start drawing on that account once you reach, I don't know, depends on whatever age you retire, but 70, 70 and a half, somewhere in there. So you might be you might be required to draw out some money from your account at the very time the market is down, as the bear market graph is showing you right here.
Exactly. To Ray's point, what he's talking about is what's called required minimum distributions. And if you retire at 55, 65, and you're not needing that money and you think, all right, fine, I'll ride the stock market out just a little bit. But if you're retiring and then you need this money and you can't you don't want to get money out that's 30% less than what you had before, but the IRS is telling you you have to draw out a certain percent every year without penalty, then it could be some expensive money. So it's a great point, Ray, because when you look at these bear markets, we've had a dozen bear markets that have dropped more than 30% over a period of 14 to 24 months to recover. So there's some timing issues that go in there. And the last true bear market we had is in October of 2007, 2008, when that housing crunch hit. We've had some pretty good gyrations lately. I open up my phone and look at the stock market, and I just look for green or red. My eyes gloss over if it's red, and I close it real quickly. So you don't know when that's going to happen. If Ray and I knew when the next bear market was going to come, we probably wouldn't be on here. We'd be on our yachts down in the Caribbean somewhere. No one knows when that's going to happen, but as we make sure that we need this money and want to protect this money, you need to have a strategy and a plan to make sure that you've got that out there. Because as we saw when coronavirus kicked in 2 years ago this month, I still remember it. We all do. We all went home, didn't know what was going to happen. Stock market dropped 30%. You took a pretty good haircut at that point. The good news is it came right back up and roared back up even higher. This is a screenshot that I took back in January of this year when the stock market dropped 1,000 points in one day. The Dow Jones did. And I had someone share with me, and I imagine there's some folks on the call that like to go to Oklahoma, Louisiana, or Las Vegas and do a little blackjack playing or, poker playing, something like that. When you're at the end of the night and you're up, the best thing you should do is go to bed. What I tend to do sometimes, if I'm playing and I get up a little bit and then I drop a little bit, I'll try to get back up to where I was before and end up losing more than I anticipated. So there are some people now that say, hey, we're up. Why not take some of those winnings off the table and put them in somewhere that you can not lose money, something like that. So there's some opportunities that could be out there, but you see the stock market's going up and down. Again, if Ray and I knew what was going to take place, we would be in a different place than we are here today. But when you look at your savings rates and you think, well, I'll just put it in a bank. Well, we know that savings rates are nothing right now. When I open up my Bank of America statement and it says you got 9 cents this month on your savings account, I know that's not keeping up with inflation by any stretch of the imagination. We know that gas prices aren't this high in Texas, but they're still a whole lot higher than they were a year ago. Inflation continues to eat away at our purchasing power, and I think more is coming out there. So just putting it into something like a savings account so that you don't lose money, you still may be losing money in terms of inflation and your purchasing power out there. So one of the solutions that is endorsed by the TPEA is a tax-deferred asset protection plan where you never run out of income, but you're not exposed to the stock market losses. So you still get a retirement income or an income that's safe, that's for the lifetime. It does allow you to get some competitive returns that are going to be more than a CD, more than a savings account. Upside potential of the stock market with no loss potential out there. And so it kind of helps you get over that fear that many people have. They don't have a fear of dying, but they've got a fear of running out of money in your retirement years. And so that's the number one American financial fear, is running out of money in their retirement years. And there is a tax deferred plan that TPEA endorses that gives you the ability to protect some of your nest egg so that you're not exposed or overexposed to the stock market. Maybe allow you to take, like in that Las Vegas analogy, take some of your earnings over the past 12 years off the table and save it and lock it in. Gives you that upside. It's qualified or non-qualified money. The thing I like about it is it has some long-term care benefits built inside of this. Now, I mentioned to you about cash balance pension plans. Cash balance pension plans currently are not really what your ERS plan is. Going forward, they are for new employees starting, what is it, September 1st, Ray?
September 1st of this year. Yeah.
New employees September 1st of this year are moving to some form of a hybrid, kind of a cash balance type situation. But these are pension plans that mostly private sector employees have. to where you're paid a percentage of your salary into a pension plan. It's not a 401k plan. And then the company gives you a small rate of return. And whenever you're ready to retire, you take that lump sum of money and it's your investment responsibility. So unlike ERS with your pension plan, you're always going to receive a stream of income from ERS and they invest it. A cash balance pension plan is what I had at one of my former employees, and I was responsible for the investment of it. So I looked at my father's medical history, his 2 years he spent in a long-term care facility, and looked at this option and said, I can take that old cash balance plan that was earning me less than 1%, place it into this plan where I can't lose any money. I can gain more than 1%. And if I need long-term care benefits, it provides me with long-term care benefits in the form of money I can take out without penalty. Or if I'm already taking out money in my retirement years, that I can double my payout if I have to have long-term care needs. So it does give some ability that you can do that. So if you've got questions about that, I'll show you how that works, because things that never go away in our retirement years. And for those 50% of you who are in your retirement years, you know that inflation continues its march all the time. And then on top of that, there's taxes, regardless of whether you get a pension, a Social Security check, or both. Any of those tax deferred savings, as Ray mentioned, at some point, you're going to have to pay taxes on it, whether it's through RMDs or some other mechanism. Those things don't go away. So we've got to plan for that because we've got many more years of living. It's kind of an oxymoronic statement, but it's the longer you live, the longer you're going to live, meaning that if you reach 65, every year that you have another birthday, statistics show you're going to live 2 more years in addition to that, just simply because of health advances in healthcare, early diagnosis, things like that. But you've got to consider that impact that inflation is going to have on you. You've got to consider that impact of possible life changes. And when I mean that, it could be a spouse passing away. It could be those kids moving back in with you, those type of things, or some type of long-term medical need that you have out there. So in preparing for those many years of living, you've got to think, well, what are my resources? How does that stool stay balanced? What takes care of that? We talk about a cost of living adjustment. We know that expenses are going up and inflation's going up. And right now, ERS doesn't have one of those cost of living built in there. But as Ray mentioned, TPEA is working hard towards that. ERS is having contributions by the state that are putting it back in the position that it can offer a COLA at some time. But right now, there's not one. So you've got to prepare if knowing that my retirement check is going to be stable and the same amount of money every month. How am I going to buy when the costs are more expensive? So you've got to prepare for that and kind of create something maybe that gives your own cost of living adjustment through that third leg stool that you have out there. Because as you know, if you're on Social Security goes up, it's all in relation to inflation, but they follow right back around, don't they, Ray, with a Medicare increase in terms of your cost of Medicare. So
yeah, the Part B premium goes up just about every year. So it detracts some, even when there was a significant inflation in, a COLA in the Social Security payment this year. Some of that was taken away, a portion of it, by an increased premium for Medicare Part B.
Exactly. So like I said, it's not always great to get a COLA because you know there's stuff coming behind it in there. So just know that that's out there. So how are you going to protect your nest egg? A couple of things we're going to do. I'm going to answer some questions that have come in on the chat right now. If you want to have some information about some of the solutions we've talked about, if you'll take your smartphone, open up your camera feature, and we've already had 3 or 4 people do that. I see on my phone here today, and just hover over with your camera feature open over that QR code. A little form will pop up and you can select some of the things that you want. If you just want someone to review with you what your state benefits are and how they are related to your TPEA specific benefits, because TPEA is offering members access to benefits that kind of fill the gaps that your great state benefits have. So to make sure that you understand that, show those of you who are on Medicare already what the gaps in Medicare are. Make sure you've got that. Feel free to do that. If you're on an iPad or you're on your phone and you can't do that, you can always email me at jon.green@amba.info. And for those of you like Juan early on that said, hey, come to a state office down here near me. If you want to shoot me an email and say, hey, come to Lubbock, come to Midland, come to Waco, wherever it is, then what we'll do is we'll get with TPEA and we'll see if we can schedule something in your area. We may ask you to help us get with your agency there in the city that you're in, because we would love to come see you as well. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop recording